Welcome to SportsLit. I'm Neil Acharya.
And I am Nate Sager.
The appetite for hockey in this country is insatiable. The game is mined for everything it's worth. Say of that what you will, but it drives people to find more to explore, more to unearth. Look at the wide array of titles in this book season alone. Female hockey players are front and center. Sammy Jo Small has a memoir that's out, and Manon Rhéaume, a children's book. There's bios of Serge Savard and Rick Vaive, and also a hard-hitting expose on the long-lasting impact of head trauma in the NHL through the tale of Joe Murphy, as written by Rick Westhead of TSN. Very few countries, if any at all, besides Canada, is where you will find a market for all of this. People love the game, in spite of the fact that people love the game is hammered into us at every possible opportunity through media ads and billboards. And one of those people happens to have a prominent role as an anchor on Sportsnet. Ken Reid loves the game, and he gets it. He is a purist, and the kind of guy that me and you, Nate, can relate to.
Yeah, note the time and place. Neil Acharya said I related to another human being. It's another first in 2020.
Ken is a person that will wonder about the one guy, like us, he saw in a mid-season weeknight game way back when, and then scour the internet to find out what happened to him. Did he really score that goal? Did he really get into that fight or set up that play that one night a long, long time ago? At his release party for Dennis Maruk, the story of hockey's forgotten 60-goal man, which was the first SportsLit episode in Season 1, he said at the party, and I will paraphrase, "I'm not a writer. Stephen Brunt is a writer. I'm just a guy that loves the game and tells people stories." So back to mining. Ken will be the first to tell you he isn't trying to be Skip Hollandsworth or Wright Thompson. Ken finds the stuff he is interested in and tells it. Simple. And the recipe makes for a serving of authenticity. And the thousands across the country just like him that eat this stuff up. Yep, if you're mining for hockey as we do in Canada, there are nuggets to be found. And he is back with 39 more in One to Remember. 39 members of the NHL One Goal Club. Ken was our first guest, as I mentioned, back in October 2017, and we were pleased to have him back for a record fourth time, one appearance in each season so far, and it'll be appropriate to let Reid close this one out. He is the Regis to our Letterman, but in this pandemic edition, he will join us for the first time via telephone. Nate, what are some of the other books he's written?
Oh, let's see. You mentioned the Dennis Maruk biography, our premiere back in Season 1. I guess in baseball terms, Ken was our opener that year, and he's our closer this year. He came on in Season 2 for Hockey Card Stories 2, Season 3, Episode 5 for Eddie Shack, and then his other two books that predate us starting the podcast, of course, were your first Hockey Card Stories, and of course, One Night Only, which was guys who played one game in the NHL in one game only. So, now the theme of Ken's new book, I think, is these former hockey players who are glad they got what they did out of the game. And, boy, oh boy, does that ever seem like an apt lesson in 2020 when the necessities of the before times now have become luxuries. I think Ken has done a heck of a job presenting all these vignettes of hockey lives, and it's sort of structured in a way that shows all the different paths toward playing in the National Hockey League and maybe the place it comes to occupy in one's later life. Because, Ken's got the guys in there who were organizational soldiers who toiled away for years in minor pro, and then he's got the guy who had, the high potential, and teams invested a first-round draft choice in them, but then it just didn't pan out for whatever reasons. Because, the people who are the best players at age 18 don't always become the best players at age 25 or 30. It's just the way it happens. And like you said, Ken, I think, writes for the reader who's a fan of all hockey. Now, I don't want to take this into us versus them framing, but, a lot of fans, they only follow, the big league and their favorite team, and that's fine. And that tends to be the most reachable market for book publishers. But there's, the smaller group that, look at the game at many levels, that fan who will, once it's medically safe to do so again, venture out on a cold winter night to watch a junior or a Canadian university game among a couple thousand or a few hundred diehards. So that group's, they're not few, but they are far between. But, I think Ken has found a common thread in relating the perspective of one-goal club members. And I'm not sure if the other Big Four North American leagues have anything that kind of is like the distinction of scoring just one goal in the NHL. I mean, obviously a basketball game has so many scoring events. Football, has the fat guy touchdown, when some big behemoth, 350-pound lineman scores, on a freak play like tackle-eligible pass or falls on or scoops up a fumble. Baseball has National League pitchers hitting home runs, hopefully for not much longer, universal DH now. But I don't think that has the same emotional ring to it. It just stands out because someone is doing something that's not in their job description in a team sport that has highly specialized roles. And hockey's not quite as specialized. Forwards and defensemen kind of all have the same basic skills, more or less. And any one of the 18 skaters a team dresses for a game can score a goal. But here are the guys whose first NHL goal also turned out to be their last. So, imagine, doing something Swedish without knowing it would be the Finnish, and that makes the interesting angle for Ken Reid's latest book, Neil.
Agreed. Now let's get some pucks in deep with the man himself after this break. And we're back on SportsLit, and yes, we have Ken Reid. One to Remember is the book, and of course, off the top, I didn't mention the release date. It was mid-September, so it's been out for a little while, and we're going to talk about it right before the holiday break, so some of you out there can still pick it up. I want to know, Ken, in making this book and writing this book, was there one player in particular that may have piqued your curiosity to pursue this kind of compilation? One player that had the one goal?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, when I first looked down the list, a few names jumped out to me. One that jumped out to me was Frank Beaton, who was a notorious tough guy in the 70s. Played in the North American League, played in a bunch of leagues, played in the WHA and in the NHL. He's kind of a legendary guy. If you talk to anybody from the 70s, they most likely have a Frank Beaton story. So Frankie was in there. Dennis Bondy was in there. He's from my neck of the woods, and Dennis is the most penalized player in pro hockey history, so I knew I had to talk to Dennis. And also, when I saw this guy's name pop up, I knew I had to talk to him, and that was Dave Hansen, one of the Hansen brothers from Slapshot. He actually scored a single NHL goal. So I knew I had to talk to Dave. Luckily, my buddy Colby Armstrong, who lives in Pittsburgh now, actually works out with Dave and his son Christian, so that was an easy contact to get. Dave was wonderful to have in the book, and just a super nice guy who just loved the game, so I was thrilled to get Dave in there.
So some of the tough guys may have been the catalyst, and they are in the in chapter 12, Toughies, with Dennis Bondy, Frank Beaton, and Chris McRae. And is it Rob Skrlak? Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, Rob Skrlak. Yeah, you know me. I like my hockey fights, right, guys? I had to get that in there.
Yeah, and you don't like none of that stinking root beer.
No, I don't like root beer, and yeah, I like my hockey old school. So when I saw these tough guys on the one goal list, I wanted to talk to the tough guys because, I mean, these are what's special about the tough guy, and I think that what's made the tough guy who makes it all the way to the NHL special for fans is they're relatable because they're hardworking guys. They appeal to the guy who goes to his job every day and just does it and doesn't get a lot of glory for it. They're relatable in the sense that they didn't think they'd make it to the NHL, and neither did we as normal people, as normal fans. So there's guys in the book that were first-round picks, and they ended up with one goal, and they kind of said, geez, how did that happen? Why did I only get one? And then there's guys who were tough guys and fought their way into the league, and they go, wow, I got one. So there's different ways to look at one goal.
There's all the tough guys too. I mean, if you're ever in the scrum, a media scrum after a game or before a game, a lot of times the tough guys are actually the nicest guys. I think back to my time, the occasional time when I was in the Leafs room, and Fraser McLaren, probably one of the nicest people there. And I think the reason I bring it up is because I think a lot of people who casual fans of the game may not know that.
Right, and Brad May put it into great perspective for me once. He said, of course we're the nicest guys. It takes a nice guy to stand up for the other 19 guys on the bench. And I never thought about it that way. And when I first started covering hockey and going into the rooms, I was the same as you, Neil. I thought the tough guys were going to be these mean fellas, but they're the nicest guys because it takes a special guy to go, okay, I'm going to stand up for you, and I'm going to take a punch in the face for you. Not a lot of mean guys might go start a fight, right? Whereas a tough guy will go, okay, that guy took care of you, I'm going to take care of him. I'll take a couple swats in the face for you. Takes a special person, a different kind of bravery, and to me, it's a very honorable position, which of course I would like to see more of in the game.
And now, what was sort of the grand idea behind the way the book is sort of sorted into sections based on the types of careers players had?
Yeah. Well, I guess my publisher likes chapters, so you got to go with chapters. I mean, the way I write these books, you guys, you don't really need chapters, right? Like, I mean, it's 39 different stories, but it's always nice to lump people together into groups for fans. Like, I mean, if you see a tough guys chapter, I think that's appealing. If you see a chapter on first rounds, I think I called it high expectations. There's something to be said for that. The goalies obviously go together, but it's an easy read. I mean, you guys know me. I ain't writing War and Peace here. I just use the word ain't. How many authors use the word ain't? So I'm just a dude who writes books, and I think my stories are kind of like if we sat down over a beer and just chatted. And I like to think that that's what you're getting from the player that scored that single goal is he's sitting with you, having a pop or a coffee, and he's just telling you a story.
Yeah. How, in terms of your publisher, ECW Press, like how much, what was the collaboration with them like in terms of how we're going to market this book?
Yeah, they're great. They just kind of let me go. I think you guys know, I'm lucky through my job that I get to know a lot of people and get a lot of contacts. So a lot of times I'll just pick up the phone and call a buddy and say, hey, do you need a radio spot? Jeff Perlman's one of my favorite writers, and I follow him on Twitter, and he's always says, look, if you write a book, you got to market it. You got to go out on your own. You got to make calls. For some people, that's, I guess, not the funnest part of the job, maybe a little, I don't want to use the word embarrassing, but maybe a little bit of humble pie, to call someone and say, would you like to interview me? As opposed to them calling me and say, hey, I'd love to have you on the show. So right. I don't mind asking. Oprah says if you want something, you got to ask for it. So who am I to question Oprah? So my marketing, a lot of it just consists of me calling up guys like yourselves and saying, hey, you need somebody on SportsLit? Or I call my buddy Bob Stauffer out in Edmonton and say, hey, you need somebody on Oilers Lunch? Or call Sobalski out in Vancouver. Hey, you're desperate for a morning guest? Let me know one morning when somebody drops out. I'm happy to come on. So that's kind of what my marketing consists of. Because there's no media tour this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So, I mean, was there one planned, or was this kind of all conceived and written knowing that you would have to do phone interviews or Zoom interviews?
Yeah, I mean, this is how I've done most of my book publications anyway. I've never been. I don't sell enough books to go on a big national tour. Like I always say, like Berkey's got a book out, Kipper's got a book out, James Duthie, Bob. Those guys are the rock stars of the industry. That's like a Kiss concert. They just go from town to town, pyro effects and stuff like that. And I'm kind of like the folk music magician who's in the coffee shop. I really hope you like what I have to offer. I know I'm not going to sell 1 million copies, but I know the ones I sell, they tend to be well-liked. And I really appreciate anybody who takes the time to buy a book, not just my book, but anybody's books. Because books aren't, we all walk around with these little devices in our hands. So I think taking the time to read a book's a special thing. So yeah, my marketing plan for this book's very much the same as the other ones. The only difference is I usually do quite a few book signings around the Toronto area.
Right. And
I have not done that because of COVID. That was a big difference.
I'll tell you one thing, and we talked about this in our intro. You are like this is the fourth time every season you've been on our podcast. You are the Regis Philbin to our David Letterman. So I will this is
that's
all
a huge honor.
Well, it's an honor for us, and even though this is the first time you haven't been in studio with us, once you can be again, once this pandemic is all done, we will try and arrange some fireworks or something to have you in here and make it like a rock star experience.
Sweet. I love that because I love Motley Crue and Kiss and all that stuff. I love those big shows.
Well, I want to ask you, just quickly going back to the book, is there one player in this book that you, and the reason I ask you this is because I think I know that there is an answer, and is there one player in this book that you would trade places for to score that one goal?
I think all 39 of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just a dreamer, man. You guys know me. I write these books because I'm curious about what it's like to make it to that level that the kid who played midget C in high school hockey dreamed of. I'm like, when I play road hockey with my kids, I still kind of, I think a lot of people in their minds still think they're scoring in the NHL or have fantasized it about at some point.
Right.
So for me, they're all great stories. I look at it as a fantastic accomplishment to score even one goal in the National Hockey League. I guess if there was one guy I'd trade spaces with, though, it would be Dave Hansen, right? Because he got to be in Slapshot and hang out with Paul Newman, so I think that's pretty cool.
First,
who were you thinking?
Well, you answered my follow-up already because about this kind of realizing what a childhood dream. So that I thank you for. But I was thinking it'd be Mike Forbes because he got Gretzky and Curry.
That's true.
And you're obviously a huge Gretzky guy, so I thought I actually thought that this was the catalyst for the book. You saw that Mike Forbes had scored this one goal, and it was from Gretzky and Curry, and hey, why not make a book? So,
yeah, you know what? Well, it's funny when I look down the list of one goal scorers, and there's around 350, 400 guys. There's tons of names I didn't know, obviously, and when I get to Mike Forbes, I see Edmonton Oilers 1981, and I go, well, I got to check that out, right? Yeah. And then I see assisted by Gretzky and Curry, and I just go, I have to have this guy in the book. It took me a while to track him down, but it was one of those deals where, oh my God, I have to have him. And I couldn't find a picture of him on the Oilers. Thank goodness for my buddy Andre Bren, who worked in communications with the Oilers at the time. They were nice enough to hook me up with a picture of him. But can you imagine getting one goal in your NHL career, and it's assisted by Wayne Gretzky and Yeri Curry? And like Mike told me, he goes, I thought I was going to get another one that night. He was on the power play with Gretzky and Curry. So right. I think that's a pretty awesome story to be able to tell whomever you want to tell to.
Yeah, and how invaluable a resource was Hockey Reference in doing the research for this?
Yeah, Hockey Reference, Hockey DB. My buddy Steve Fellon at Sportsnet, who's our head stats guy, he can put anything in order for you. So when this idea was trickling around in my head, I went in one night and I said, "Hey, Fallon, can you give me a list of all the guys that score a single goal in the NHL?" And Steve's doing other work. He's like, "Yeah, give me 10 minutes." I said, "What?" And then, Steve's amazing. He is the smartest guy at Sportsnet, and he comes back with this list, and I was in heaven because I just started devouring it and going through it. And, oh, I know that guy. Oh my God, that guy. Oh my God. And who's that guy? So it was a blast. So yeah, that was part of the fun part too, is just finding out who was on this list, and then by calling these guys, just finding out who exactly they were, because that took me in a lot of different directions I didn't think I'd be going either.
Around when was this? Did it start with you going to Steve in a certain year, Steve Fallon?
Yeah.
And when was that? Is that kind of how the book started?
Yeah, I guess it would have been. Well, it was kind of like a loose follow-up to One Night Only, right?
Right.
Guys, One Night Only is about guys who scored one goal. So One Night Only came out in around 2016. So I was writing this book, One to Remember, when I got the offer to write Eddie Shack's book.
Right.
So I was kind of right in the middle of this. I'd say this idea probably came up about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So that's and I was curious to how many guys there were, because I didn't know. And when Fallon gave me the list, I said, okay, there's enough guys to cherry pick 39 from that. So yeah, so I was writing this, and then I had the offer from Brian Aaronworth to write the book with Eddie Shack, and I definitely couldn't say no to that experience.
No.
So this one went on hold for 6 months while I wrote Eddie's book and promoted Eddie's book. And then right after Christmas last year, so about 12 months ago, I got right back into finishing this one, and I had it done by May. And the way we went with, is that math right?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of math in there.
Two things before I know Nate's jumping in with a question, but two things. I was going to ask this later on, but since we're on topic, that you brought up two names that I was going to ask you about at some point. The first, I will say, I guess, Steve Fallon. You talked about him a lot and who he is. I've worked with Steve twice as well at The Score and at Sportsnet. So to just tell the people why he's so invaluable, kind of what he does at Sportsnet and where they may know him from, because I think on Twitter he handles Sportsnet stats, I think.
Yeah. Well, Steve's one of those guys that doesn't get any credit, right?
Right.
Whenever people watch TV and they watch the anchor, they either think the anchor's a genius or an idiot, right? You either screw up or you're brilliant. A lot of the times we're neither. We're probably somewhere in between. Now, I like to think I know a lot about hockey, and I know a lot of anchors who do, but when you just hear this a weird stat just pop up on the air, or I'll suddenly say, you know, that's the first time that Austin Matthews that's the first Leaf to score 3 in a period since Matt Sundin did it, and blah, blah, blah. That's Felon. He can get those things instantly, those stats instantly. Part of me thinks it's just in his head. And then he looks it up and confirms that he's the smartest sports guy. He's brilliant. And, yeah, he runs our Sportsnet Stats Twitter account, which is fantastic. And he's funny as hell, too, in real life, you know. But, yeah, he's a beauty. And when I go into work and you need anything, it's so nice to know when you're on an anchor desk, you're not alone, because you got Steve Felon behind you, and you got your directors, your editors, your teleprompter roller. So he's one of the guys that totally makes the place roll, and he's absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant when it comes to sports.
I remember in 2019 when the I think it was Game 6 of the Bruins Leafs was shifted to an afternoon game, and I was fuming because I knew the Leafs would lose an afternoon playoff game. And I think I messaged Steve and I said, you know, I want to know their record, the Leafs' record in afternoon playoff games. Like, you guys should do something about that. I don't know how. And he's like, oh yeah, we did that already. I figured.
He's way ahead of everybody and everything. It's like the good thing about Felon is when you're doing a game, you go in like. So say the Leafs are playing the Habs. We go in armed with a stat pack for that game that Felon and his guys have written up. So when I come on, I'm like, okay, they've won 7 of their last 8 against Toronto. That's not me doing that research. That's all Steve and his guys. So I'm extremely thankful to him. And
you do thank him in the book. And also, Eddie Shack, you came on December 17th of this year, I believe. Last year. Sorry. And you talked about the experience with Eddie, and obviously since then Eddie has passed on. So I just wanted to I mean, we talked extensively about that, and people can go back and listen to that episode if they want to. But just in the time since, I mean, were you aware that when you put that book out that Eddie was sick, or did that kind of come suddenly? And yeah, I mean, how did you handle that? Because after you write a book about a guy and spend that much time in his garage, I imagine it's got to affect you in some way. Yeah, well, we had such a great time together, right? And Eddie had battled health issues before, but he was rocking and rolling. And then in January, he was diagnosed, and boom. I mean, the thing can come quick, right? The big C. And it did. And he passed, and it was sudden. He had moments where it looked like he was coming back and moments where it didn't. But there's a guy that lived his life the way he wanted to live it, and I get to speak to him one final time, and I mean that was a thrill to get to say goodbye to him. But he was a special guy, and it was just like Eddie made such an impression on so many people, and he always gave them that moment. Like when you meet Eddie Shack, he gives you the moment. He doesn't just like you'll come away with a story, and he gave me so many moments in the time we had together. Like I look back now and I think, man, what an absolute gift I got to hang out with Eddie Shack. I mean, how many people would love to do that? So, yeah, it was fast, man. Like, and what gets me about it is, he was in Halifax hanging out with my dad, and he and I were touring around everywhere in Toronto, and he was on the road, and he loved getting out. He loved being busy. And that was, I don't want to say his last hurrah, but it gave him a lot of joy just to be out there again, and to be out there consistently making people smile, saying what would be deemed by a lot of people as inappropriate and politically incorrect, but I would deem it as Eddie being Eddie. And it was almost like it was his way to just kind of get in one final lap. And I cherished all the time I had with him. I consider myself very lucky. And to get to know him and his wife Norma was very special. Did you learn anything about marketing going forward because he is a marketing genius? Yeah, I sure did. I learned that you hustle. And it's funny when I was saying, you market these books by calling up and asking, and Eddie was never shy, man. So yeah, if Eddie he'd do anything to make a buck. He loved it. He loved
he loved the hustle, right? That was his thing. I think he got just as much joy out of selling Christmas trees as he did out of playing in the NHL. Like he loved just the challenge of turning $1 into $2.
Right.
And he turned $1 into a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a blast. Just a man who he would do anything for a laugh, and he'd do anything to make a buck. He was a great fellow.
Now, sort of a semi-90-degree turn here. There was that article you had in the Toronto Star a few days ago about, having depression and finding help.
Yeah.
I just wondered how accurate is it that you sort of come full circle, because the books you've written, they really link to the deep interest you developed when you were a teen and you felt isolated. What does that sort of mean to you, and maybe what example do you hope it sets for people who have a similar struggle with mental health?
Yeah, so I was not comfortable for a long time and started a good job telling my story, and I like the fact that they made it about, hopefully this will help people, because I certainly didn't do it so people would feel bad for me or anything like that. But yeah, it's funny, that's a good point, Nate, because all these guys whose cards I collected and pictures I collected, that kind of gave me comfort as a kid. And when I say as a kid, from about 15 years old on. And yeah, now full circle, I'm interviewing them or doing books with them. It's to me, it's amazing. Like, it is weird, because there was that gap in there where, when I was 15, 16, 17, I wasn't going to high school dances. I'd play high school hockey on a Friday night, and a lot of the guys would go out after the game, and I'd go straight home. My buddies would go out on Saturday nights, and I remember looking out the windows at two of my buddies kind of going out for the night, and me sitting in the house going, what's wrong with me? Right. But they just thought I didn't want to come out, right? Because I never did. So I would go in my room, and I'd look up my sports stats and look at my hockey cards, the baseball cards, and now, doing stories on these guys, I find it very uplifting. And to do that story was in the Star was a nice, I don't know if it was I've spoken openly about my mental health issues before, but never on a platform this huge.
Right.
So the feedback's been incredible. I can't believe it, and I'm still saying thank you to people for that. But I guess it kind of has come full circle, because it's funny. I'm doing for a living. It's just kind of an extension of what I did for so much joy as a kid, right? Hockey gave me so much joy as a kid, and I'm kind of come back to that through storytelling, and storytelling in a lot of cases through old hockey cards, which were things that gave me so much joy. And I don't know how Fallon knows all his stories, but I know all my stories from back to hockey cards. So yeah, it has kind of come full circle in a way.
It did before the story came out on Saturday, I believe it was. I did notice that there was kind of a thread of the mental approach to the game and how it affected people and mental effects on people in this book. And a couple that struck out to me. Well, one particularly was Jason Podolin. It almost seemed as though he had an imposter syndrome, where he almost felt like he didn't believe he should be there, even though he'd been great. To get there is something, as Colby writes in the intro, and as you've talked about, and many people talk about. But did that stick out to you? Because it's in the few pages of his story that he didn't feel like he belonged there. Yeah. Oh my God. Absolutely. When I was talking to Jason, I was kind of going, oh my God, I can relate, not on a hockey level, but on a personal level. And he's a first round high pick, traded straight up for Kirk Muller at one point in time. And he's told when he gets to Toronto, be at practice tomorrow, but he needed more to be told more than that. So and I always had the struggle of not feeling like I fit in, even early in my media career, feeling like I didn't fit in. Right. But Jason, it's funny, like, he finished his career with one goal, and he's one of the guys in the book that thinks he should have scored 500. And that kind of took a toll on him for a while, and now his whole career is dedicated to helping kids with the mental side of the game, right? Like, yeah, you might have a great set of hands and you can skate, but there's more to that than scoring goals in the NHL. And I know, because I had to learn it the hard way, but I'm going to teach you, so hopefully you can learn it the easy way. So it's funny, his one goal was almost the start of his journey. Like, for a lot of guys, it was the top of the mountain. For some guys, it was whatever. For Jason, it was almost the beginning of this new
part of his life that he didn't know he was going to be like a mental skills coach, but that's where his one goal led him. Geez, for other guys, it was into science or being a doctor or being a hockey scout or a coach or whatever. And for Jason, it was quite a turn. And it's actually Jason's one of my favorite stories in the book. I was actually a guest on his podcast, and he's got a company called Up My Hockey, and he's just talking to people about not about tight turns and F1 in the corner followed by F2. He's talking about what goes on between your ears with the game, which is something that for most guys in this book wasn't part of the game back then.
It may be hard to fathom for some people out there, but there's people at the top like yourself or Jason Podolin or even like, let's say, Heath Ledger in Hollywood, someone that knowing that you're kind of, everyone sees you at the top, but to have that person think, hey, maybe I shouldn't be there, that's profound. I think I don't think a lot of people would ever imagine that.
Everyone's full of doubts, I think, at some point in their life. I think the more we talk about it, the more we realize that everyone's kind of going up against something, and no matter what you see on the outside, you only see the surface, right? And you don't know what's going on with someone until they tell you.
Right.
And for me, everyone just saw the surface for a long time. And my parents didn't even know, right? Like, Dad's like, geez, he wasn't in his room that much. And my mother was like, yeah, he was. And, I had to tell Mom, it's nothing you did. Right? Like, no one knows unless you tell them. Right. So hopefully people that are struggling will just speak up and tell someone, and then that person can point them in the right direction, because it's great to talk to people, but there's professionals out there to help you too. I think I used the analogy in the book, like a leaky faucet. You can try to fix it yourself, but you should probably call one of their professionals. So get a pro if you can.
Yeah. Now, now about the, we talked about, the head part of hockey, but about the body. Yeah. I know your colleague Brian Burke, he wants a shorter regular season, or at least said so in his book, season 4, episode 5, by the way. Now, what's striking with me was how many players you spoke to related how a European or a KHL schedule, which is fewer games than the NHL regular season, is easier on the body. Is that something we should be, paying a little more attention to in North America?
Maybe, but I also think over here we're so driven by the buck, right? So more games here means more gate revenue, more TV revenue, and the players, it means higher salaries. I think saying fewer games is easier to say when you're done playing. As an active player, you probably want as many games as possible. You may not like it some nights on a Tuesday night, and in a rink you don't want to be in, but it's contributing to your bottom line. But perhaps we should consider it. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of a guy like Richie Reguer or Matt Higgins in the book. And Matt was physically just couldn't handle the NHL, but then went on to play for a number of years in Europe. Richie Reguer in the book, and I never knew this, was told me he was offered to come back on a one-way deal with the Flames, and just thought, you know what, I'm cool staying in Europe because I'm not getting smashed into the boards every night. You could also argue now, I guess, that the game isn't as physical as it once was. So perhaps it's not as punishing, but a hit's a hit. If there's 100 in the game or one, and you're the guy that takes the one, it still hurts. So, yeah, I mean, I think fewer regular season games would make for a better product, but I think the argument would, on the other end, would be, well, you have to tell. So let's say you cut the schedule by 15 games. So that's about 17.5% of an 82-game schedule. I want to do quick math. Players all going to line up for a 17.5% decrease in salary. I don't know how you put that one by them. So there's, it always comes down to follow the buck, follow the money, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Now, also the way you relate the story of Joey Hishin, who came back from serious brain trauma. I was at the game where he got headshotted at the 2011 Memorial Cup.
What happened? Like, it must have been silence, was it, after he got hit?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, and then afterwards, it was kind of like everyone at the time. Yeah, it was kind of weird. I just sort of remember the post-game press conference and the coach of the Kootenay team, whose player hit him trying to defend it. Everyone's like, "Yeah, come on, man." But the way he sort of came back from that and scored, got his one goal in the NHL, and then transitioned into a post-playing career. It reminded me of that ball player, John Kruk, who retired on the spot when he became a .300 career batter. Like he's just like
wise man, John Kruk.
Yeah. What was the story? John Kruk once What was it? He saw a deer or something while he was in his hot tub and shot the deer. Just picked up his hunting rifle and shot the deer while he was hot tubbing.
That sounds about right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I was just
sorry, Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering how much is it valid to believe that Joey Hishon just wanted to like prove his point that he was an NHL talent and he wanted to move on to his next career as quickly as possible without sustaining any long-term head trauma.
I think you could argue that, and I thank my buddy Derek Wright at work for contacting me out with Joey Hishon. Derek did a great TV story on Joey a few years back. But yeah, I think that there's probably a part of him that felt validated. That to come back the way he did was incredible. I mean, for 18 months he didn't move, let alone play hockey. You're sitting in a dark room. But I think in his case, I think it's probably validation, that one goal. And I think maybe more so to prove that he was an NHL, or to prove that he could do it as a person, right, and not be destroyed by that hit. Joey's a first-round pick, right? He's a guy that when you watch him in junior, you would have bet on him scoring a lot. But things happen in the game of hockey. But, to come back, it's definite. I think that goal is definite validation for his hockey career. And for the mental side, have him saying, you know what, I can take a lot and still come out shining. And I love the picture we use in the book, too, because it's not a picture of Joey's face. It's a picture of him high-fiving all his teammates. And oftentimes a single goal will mean more to your teammates than it did to the player. And I'm sure a lot of Joey's teammates were smiling that night because they knew what he'd been through. And Joey's a perfect example of that. If you look up stats on HockeyDB or Hockey Reference, and under goal you see one, but you don't see what went into that one goal. And what went into his one goal was absolutely life-altering, I would argue.
In terms of Matt Higgins, there was a quote that he part of a quote, the last half of this quote that stood out to me, and he says, after talking about his injuries, he says, the biggest thing for me was I got a chance. I got 50-some games, but my body was just never really meant for the NHL. So I thought, like, at the base level in this book, I mean, how many things can, come together cosmically to make it a lone goal or a lone game or 100 goals or 500 games? It just seems to be, in this case, the way Higgins describes it, it's just his lot, I guess.
Exactly. Everything has to happen at every certain point for any career to happen the way it does. So it's amazing to me, a guy like Matt Higgins, who's a decent-sized guy, bigger than a Wayne Gretzky, couldn't handle the physical toll, but a Wayne Gretzky could.
Right.
So Wayne's instinct, obviously, and be able to force out of the play made a huge difference. Look at a guy like Wendell Clark, right? Mm-hmm. Immensely popular for the way he played. But the way he played is going to lead to back issues, to shortened seasons at some point. But if he didn't play that way, he wouldn't have been Wendell Clark, right?
Right.
So, if Matt Higgins didn't play the way he did, he wouldn't have been Matt Higgins. Now, Matt still went on to a great career in Europe when it was all over, and he got his chance, as he said.
Right.
And he got his goal. And, there's so much that goes into just one goal. There's so much that goes into 500 goals.
Right.
But I think most guys in the book realize that, this was their lot, and that's how it played out. There's only one Wayne Gretzky, right?
Right.
Not everybody's a Hall of Famer. There's Danny Gallivan, there's Bob Cole, then there's everybody else.
Right.
So I'm like the guys in the book. I'm just happy I'm part of the everybody else crowd, and I'm in that community. And I think a lot of the guys after time realize, you know what, I'm part of this, and that's still special.
Well, and speaking of those guys, I just wanted to throw out a few names, and I'm glad we kind of covered some of the names in the book so far. So I'm gonna throw out three more and just basically mention their name, and you can give me something, the first thing that comes to your mind about them. And
okay.
And I think we've pounded the Kingston drum a lot here this season, Nate, and because of that, I chose the first guy as Scott Metcalf, who played for the Kingston Canadians. So tell me about Scott Metcalf.
First thought of Scott Metcalf is I met him in 1985 after an Oilers exhibition game in Halifax, Nova Scotia, when the Sabres played the Oilers, and somehow my mother got my brother and I, who were, I think, 12 and 9 at the time, into a Moosehead drink-up after the game. So that's the first thing I think of when I think of Scott Metcalf. I think of a guy that also, so many of the guys, and you said, Neil, the cosmic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Metcalf's drafted by the Edmonton Oilers in 1985. Try cracking that lineup, right?
Right.
So what if he would have been drafted by, I don't know, the Minnesota North Stars? Maybe he would have played a lot more in the NHL, but he tried cracking the Oilers up front in 1985. So I think that's what I think of when I think Scott Metcalf.
I bring this next man up because the quote is another that this actually really stood out with me probably more than any, and it was about the artistic impression. Really, Les Kozak describes the color of the jerseys and the stands being all charcoal, and I thought, wow, like what a thing to think about for a guy that had one goal.
I know.
But Les Kozak.
So, yeah, Les Kozak, when I hear that quote, I think of those great old pictures in those big hockey books you see of the old crowds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say in the gardens of the Montreal Forum. Les Kozak, one of the most incredible hockey stories I've ever heard. I don't know of anyone these days who passes up their final year of junior to become a priest. Their team wins the Memorial Cup. Then you go, I don't want to be a priest. You sign a pro hockey deal. You score a goal for the Leafs. A few games later, you get your head crushed. You almost die. You have a golf ball-sized hole in your head, and you become a world-renowned scientist. That's the story. Les Kozak is just like a mind-boggling story to me. That's like you just kind of open your eyes and go, "Whoa, that's Les Kozak."
And the last person I'll mention before Nate jumps on with another question is the person the book was dedicated to, Bob Warner, who passed away before the publication of this book.
Bob Warner, much beloved guy down in the Halifax area, worked at the Ashburn Golf Club for years. Was so thrilled to have him in the book, and then kind of right before we went to print, he passed quickly. So I was honored to dedicate the book to Bob. He's in the St. Mary's University Hall of Fame. He was looking forward to reading it. So that was just a little sad when he passed away.
Yeah, and since we can connect everything to everything, when I think of St. Mary's University in hockey, I think of Brett Gibson, a guy from Gananoque, who starred there in the early 2000s, is now since we can always connect everything to Kingston, the coach at Queens. Yeah. And then you're mentioning Oilers picks from that era when the Oilers basically drafted 21st overall every year. Another one was Peter Soberlak, who never got to the NHL because of injuries, but is now a mental skills coach for the Kamloops Blazers, similar to what Jason Podolin's doing.
Was Trevor Steinberg from Kingston or Cornwall?
No. Trevor Steinberg is from Moscow, Ontario, which is up somewhere north of Napanee. Yeah, but Steiny's from that area too.
That's the area. Yeah, my cousin lives in Napanee. Steiny's a beauty, man. I first met Steiny when I was play-by-play guy in the Maritime Junior A Hockey League, and Steiny coached East Hand. So he's doing well now, scouting for the Kraken. Got a scouting gig with the Kraken. So way to go, Steiny. And
not the only former university hockey coach doing that. They also hired Chris McDonald as an amateur scout, and he was the coach at Queens when the play-by-play and color commentator team on the radio were a couple of miscreants named Neil Acharya and Nate Sager.
Wow, and they've went on to greatness too. And keep your eyes open for Steiny's son, who I believe is playing at Cornell.
Oh, nice. Now, I was wondering. Sportsnet these days, you're doing a segment that covers cards. I wonder, obviously right now everyone's getting really creative with ways to fill the show, and there's a lack of live sports. How much do you hope, or how hopeful are you that there's still a place for that when the NHL gets playing again and everyone's playing a full schedule?
Yeah, I think, like, you mean for getting hockey card content on the shows and stuff like that?
Yeah, the stuff that's really the character of the game, I guess.
Yeah, I think once the games start up again, we'll get back into the flow of things as per usual. But I do hope that, and I trust that creative side in everyone will stay alive, because we have had to find ways to fill our time. But, man, I just hope come January 15th we're back talking about getting pucks in deep again and there's no escrow in CBA. I miss doing hockey highlights, man. I miss watching games every night. I love the game, and it's just enough. Let's get her going. But first and foremost, I hope we're all healthy. And when that vaccine shows up at my door, I'm going to funnel it. Remember how I used to funnel beer back in the day? I am doing that. I can't wait for that stuff to arrive.
Now, what is your card? What is the count now for your card collection? Last I read was 40,000.
Yeah, I got way too many. You know what? I just had to find a card right before you guys called, and I was saying to my wife, I've got to organize these things. It's a mess. I'd say 50,000, 50,000, yeah, in that range, Nate. And the cards have gone nuts in the last year, but since this pandemic started up, insane. The amount of people who've contacted me with Gretzky rookies thinking they're millionaires is nuts. I'm breaking a lot of hearts, saying, no, see that giant crease? That's going to impact the price. So, but it's wild, and I'm glad to see people back into card collecting. There's stuff selling now, and Neil, you know this through your brother. There's stuff selling now that I thought would never sell again in the history of mankind. So, good on people if they want to collect it.
I'm going to move this question up. I was going to end with this, but I will make this one of my final questions. I'll move it up, and that is the Gretzky Grade 10 rookie, one of only 2 Grade 10 level Gretzky rookies in existence, just became the first hockey card to break $1 million in auction.
Yeah.
That happened 3 days ago on December 11th, and I think it's known as the Great One of Two. So, is that one of the cards you're just talking about, or just referring to, like shocked to see going for sale?
No,
okay.
No. I think cards like a Gretzky, a Bobby Orr rookie, a Gordie Howe, a Maurice Richard, old ones will always retain value. The stuff I'm shocked to see selling is stuff from the 1980s and 1990s that we deemed to not have much value.
Oh, okay.
In the last 20 years, like boxes of 1990 Upper Deck are selling for $40. Well, you could have bought one 2 years ago for $5, and somebody probably would have high-fived you and done your lawn if you bought it off them as well. I mean, you couldn't give this stuff away. But it's amazing, and I'm glad because with the game not on, people are finding a way to connect to the game. But basketball cards are going insane. Baseball cards are going insane. So I think a lot of people are looking at it as an investment vehicle, which a lot of people obviously looked at it that way in 1990. Turned out well for some, not for most. But if you want to collect what you want. If you like something that others deem absolutely worthless, if you like it, go for it. Because this is my message to card collectors. Something is only worth what someone will pay for it. So there you go.
Well, you have some listeners out there that may be casual card collectors now going to dust off their collection that they thought was bunk stuff. Well, since we were talking about Gretzky, and we know your love of Gretzky, and you did have his hockey card story, which is now, of that rookie card, which is now in Hockey Card Stories 2, which has come to fame because of that auction that happened and the record-setting price for a hockey card. I want to ask you, in terms of your next projects, I know you know, either you are going to keep it close to your vest or there isn't one at the current time. But what I was wondering is, what about a Wayne Gretzky fantasy camp experience? I was wondering if you'd ever been part of that, and if that could make a potential book for you, having this sportscaster live his dream going to Gretzky's fantasy camp.
I know Wayne used to have the fantasy camp. I don't think he does it anymore. He might. I don't know.
Okay.
But I think he shut her down. But my buddy Jimmy Jerome used to be the MC there. I always said to my buddy Craig Clark, if we ever win the $1 million, we are going here to fantasy camp. I would have gone. That would be a great book. It would be great to know the guys who go to it, why they want to go to the Wayne Gretzky fantasy camp. I think that'd be fantastic. Yeah, but you know what? It's like Kramer on Seinfeld when he went to the fantasy camp. This is the last guy who needs to go to a fantasy camp. His whole life's a fantasy.
Right.
So I feel very and it's funny, you know, with that story in the Star, and I was in a bad spot for a long time, but I've come to realize that life's good now. It's pretty fantasy campy right now, you know, getting to write books and call up hockey guys and talk to them about it, and I get to go to games for free sometimes, you know, with a media pass. That's pretty good. So, but I love the idea of a Wayne Gretzky fantasy camp book. Maybe Lander should start it up again just so we can do that book.
I like it.
Yeah, that'd be good. But I know when you go to Mario Lemieux's fantasy camp, Colby's one of the players, so that'd be cool.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'll go to that one.
Yeah.
And play on a line with the Arm Dog.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be his fantasy camp.
Yeah, that's right. I'd feel bad for whoever's our center because as soon as we get the puck, we both just half clapper into the corner, just dump and chase the whole time.
Yeah, maybe it would be,
I'd dump it in soft, right, so he could line somebody up.
maybe it'd be like the old 70s Habs, like Lafleur and Schutt were the wings, and they called them the donut line because they had no center because Scotty Bowman just, plugged and played whoever.
Yeah. Whoever got plugged and played with us wouldn't be too happy. Our Corsi wouldn't be good, right? Because as soon as we get the puck, we just dump her in.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually get a Jim Corsi Quebec Nordiques throwback jersey. So,
Oh wow, that'd be wild.
My brother is working on that. Now, you are a hockey purist, but I don't think you necessarily live in the past. How would you sort of define your relationship status with the NHL game as it's played these days? We've kind of touched on that a little through this conversation.
Well, thank you for not thinking I live in the past. I certainly think I do. I think the game's overcoached, but I think every sport is overcoached now. I think the game is, and I hate to say this, but too fast. I'd love to see the red line back in. But I think the players have never, ever, ever been as skilled as they are now. It's disgusting what kids can do with the puck. The amount of skill they have is off the charts. There's, the thing about hockey for me is I always want to see it get better. And that's because I love the game so much. Like I can go to a, golf tournament and just watch it. Right, and I'm not thinking, well, what's that club made of? Like when I go to a hockey, I'm kind of analyzing it. But no, I love high offense, high hitting, the odd scrap. So if you give me a game like that, I'm happy. I think sometimes it's a little too passive. There's not enough hitting, but there's not enough room either, right? Because the guys are so fast. So the fact that guys can think on their feet in the game now is absolutely incredible to me. So when you watch the super skilled guys, and they're slowing this game down, that to me is mind-boggling.
I'm gonna close by asking you again.
Oh wait, guys, my wife's trying to be quiet here in the background. Should I talk about her on the air? Oh,
sure.
She's all embarrassed. She's running out of the room. Okay, there she goes.
I want to ask you about again the acknowledgments, and we talked about Steve Fellon, but you also mentioned Brendan Dunlop, who will have a book coming out about Dwayne D. Rosario, which we'll be sure to include next season. What do you know about that project? Did you know he was a writer?
Yeah, I've been told that Brendan's one of the best writers that somebody I know who thinks very highly of writers has seen in a long time. The timing is great with D-Row just named to the MLS top 25 all time. I hope that book resonates with young soccer players. And I mean, I can't think of a lot of books on Canadian soccer players, so I think it's fantastic that it's getting published and they're writing something out there that hasn't really been written before. So absolutely. I think Dwayne's got a great story, and I think Brendan's the perfect guy to talk about it because he's so passionate about soccer, and he makes fun of me because my little guy loves soccer, right? He thinks my little guy is going to grow up to be Canadian Messi, and I'll be bragging him to play hockey. So he gets a good kick out of that. But no, I'm looking forward to that book. It's also from ECW.
Well, you know what, Ken? Thank you for joining us today. Is there anything you'd like to add or anything that we haven't asked you before we let you go?
No, I enjoy your guys' passion for books and hockey books in particular. I think it's good that we're still talking about them and getting them out there for people because there's some wonderful stories in the game. There's some serious stories in the game too. All kinds of journalists out there that approach different aspects of the game. And if you don't pick up my hockey book, please pick up someone else's and just support writers. And if you can pick it up at your local bookstore, please do, because we need those stores.
I'm sure they will be, Ken. Ken is modest, but I think it's 6 titles now he has out, and obviously Hockey Card Stories is the biggest and the most popular, but they're all well loved. And go ahead and grab it out there. And thank you, Ken.
6 titles, same as Jordan and same as Tom Brady.
Oh.
Yeah. Salaries are a little different, though, aren't they?
a little, slightly.
Thank you, Ken.
Slightly. Thanks, boys. Merry Christmas.
You're welcome. Thank you. Happy holiday. So this episode puts a bow on Season 4 of SportsLit. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. Our guests and listeners have our gratitude. Neil and me, we believe we're providing a way to honor authors and their work, and I guess offer unique insight on the sports geist as it stands here in the first year of a new decade. We appreciate everyone's trust and their investment of time. Now, I don't want to trivialize lives lost, people who got sick, people who are sick, all the people who are scared right now by glibly saying, oh, look, SportsLit had this good year during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's hella insensitive. But it is true that this year, SportsLit had a personal best in both the number of episodes we put out and hopefully the quality of those episodes. And we want you to know that we're proud of our effort and of staying true to what Neil and me imagined about, I guess, 3.5 years ago when we brainstormed about what format and subject would work for a podcast that conveyed our sports sensibilities. Speaking now only for myself, SportsLit's definitely provided the creative outlet I've needed during this difficult time. For those who don't know my background, and I wouldn't expect you to, I was almost sports writer famous for a bit during, I guess, a 6.5 year span from early 2010 to late 2016, basically from the Vancouver Olympics to the Rio Olympics, when I was able to be self-employed as a sports writer in Canada without covering the National Hockey League. Not many people have done that. Most aren't foolish enough to try. They got more common sense than me. But, when the opportunities to get paid to go to an arena or a stadium dried up, that sort of, led to, I guess, a moment of clarity where I realized being in those settings sometimes was kind of a trigger for depressive and anxious periods. I would put all this pressure on myself to write the perfect lead, ask the perfect question, and it just felt like, as they say, perfection's the enemy of good, and it just felt like the work plateaued. And I already always, felt uneasy and had doubts going into the sports realm because I always felt like an outsider. I'm not an athlete. So I would just be so anxious while I was at a game or an event, and oftentimes afterwards I would fall into a low mood because, it didn't go as well as it could have gone, even though it probably did go okay. And two, this is also the longest possible time before I get to do all this again. So, I took a walk in the snow like P.E. Trudeau, worst rhyme ever, and said, note to self, you need to pivot to some less public-facing work, and podcasting is one way to do that. Something where you have exercise a little more control over the editorial content. And, all the love to the guy across from me at the end of the table, Neil Acharya, for, putting up with me. But that's, but doing this has, allowed me to, engage one of my interests and, bought some time to rewire my thinking and be present and just enjoy watching sports again. And I hope for you, the listener, that comes across when we sit down to talk to people. We're having a lot of fun doing this. I think, if I can speak for both of us, I would say that this is, that's something that Neil and I have wanted to do for a long time. We've been close friends for basically our entire adult lives, but this was the first thing we really, really got to do together once we were, in the same general area in Southern Ontario. So speaking again for SportsLit, our hearts are full. We had a lot of heart-to-hearts in the summer about how to proceed, during the COVID-19 pandemic. We had just got some momentum. Brian Berard, right before, Brian Berard came on with us. That was the first time an athlete came on. To have Roy McGregor, favor us with an interview, that was pretty huge. So we just decided, we got to go for it and record whilst socially distanced. Neil and I do this in the same room and speak to guests over the phone, but we're probably sitting a good, 12 feet apart. We only unmask once we're behind the mics. Our only other contact is when we do a little post-mortem as we walk together afterwards, and Neil goes back to his flat and I find my way back to mass transit. My glasses actually fog up fiercely when I'm masked outdoors, so basically Neil has to be my eyes when I'm walking with him, along with usually being my conscience. And as if he doesn't, pump my tires enough already. So thanks in huge part to Neil networking to book the guests. We've managed to keep it going. I got the easy job, just read and prepare. We definitely expanded our depth of field this year with all the guests who graced us with their, perspective. It's obviously been a long year for everyone, but we built some momentum, and we want you to know all of you have been part of that by, listening, linking, liking, rating, retweeting, and subscribing, and, pretty pleased with Sugar on Top. Keep it up. And our guests also deserve a shout out. Brian Berard, Angie Bellaro, Brian Burke, Roy McGregor, Jeff Perlman, Willie O'Ree, Ken Reid, Manon Realm, Paul Romanek, Serge Savard, Sammy Joe Small, Doug Smith, Al Strachan, Rick Vive, and Rick Westhead. It's a pretty good group. So I can't wait for 2021 and our 5th season when we continue to book some big guests and start to see some face-to-face again. So closing, stay safe, stay hopeful, and have the happiest holiday that you can in these circumstances.